Welcome /malicious compliance. Increased my temperature so I could get sent home after mandatory temperature taking. This happened around 2011 in Singapore, during I think the swine flu, H1N1, pandemic. I was reminded of it because of the ongoing pandemic measures. For context, SG finally restarted the third school term today, and amongst other measures students have to take their temperatures in class. I'm on mobile, so I apologize if there aren't any line breaks. Back when I was but a young teen myself, we were at the height of H1N1. SG already had several protocols put into place after SARS, and while schools weren't shut down we did have daily temperature taking. I think it was once at the start of the day, once after lunch. If you hit 37.5 Celsius and above, you were sent to the sick bay, or home depending on how high it was, and whether you felt okay. My temperature ran pretty high as a teen. 37.1-37.3 was my average temperature, which raised some teachers' eyebrows, but it wasn't at the cutoff, and I felt/looked fine, so it was a non-issue. But at least once I was told that if my temperature reached 37.5 I would have to go to the sick bay or be sent home. However, bear in mind the second temperature check of the day was after lunch, when you had eaten or spent the period running around the field like teens are wont to do. My temperature post-food/general teen chaos would be just high enough to warrant the sick bay, even though I felt totally okay. The sick bay wasn't uncomfortable, and I could usually nap before someone came to check on me. But getting sent down for something I knew wasn't true, that I had a fever, when it was just food, irritated me. Just because teenage minds work that way, I guess. The teacher definitely knew it too, because this happened maybe once or twice a week at least. So the malicious compliance begins. The class I had right before lunch was home ec. Naturally, when we started our cooking module we ended up eating whatever we cooked for lunch, and then one day, we cooked curry. Nice, hot spicy curry. Knowing full well my body heats up like a firecracker when I eat good curry, I gulped it all down. I started to sweat. My cheeks were warm. It was really good curry. And then once lunch ended, we took our temperatures. 37.7, 37.6. My thermometer beeped loudly like the traitor it was. Physically I was fine, but rules are rules, especially in a pandemic. I waited for 5 minutes and it still registered as a fever. Imagine that. Who knew being in a hot humid classroom in a hot humid country after eating hot spicy curry could keep your temperature up? The teacher asked if I felt okay. She knew I'd had curry. I knew I'd had curry. She knew my temperature always ran higher. And I guess this is where the malicious compliance kicks in, because, knowing I felt totally fine, I just said, well, I guess my temperature isn't going down. And so I packed my bag and trudged down to the sick bay. She didn't say anything or looked irritated, but seemed kind of resigned to it. My temperature wouldn't go down past 37.5 after that. It wasn't a fever and I didn't fall sick later. My body just lights up whenever I eat food. So that day I think I had to have my mum come pick me up, which I feel bad about in hindsight, but hey, safety rules are safety rules. In the end there was no severe outcome for anybody. I spent a few more times in the sick bay, but I never went home early again, for that reason anyway. But that was the first and only time I deliberately gave myself a fever with someone else knowing that I wasn't sick. And I managed to get a half day out of it despite feeling/being totally fine. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. Didn't expect to wake up to so many TBH. To clarify, one reason I got away with this was because each of us used an oral thermometer. So spicy mouth equals higher temperature. If they measured it with an ear thermometer I probably wouldn't have gotten away with it. And unfortunately my metabolism isn't as high as this story makes it seem. My body just reacts strongly to being out in the sun or eating hot/spicy food. Ever since menopause set in, I'm almost always hot, but ironically, my temp has always run about 1.5 degrees F low. So, I sleep with just a sheet covering me and usually have a fan or 3 going. Also, the rare occasion that I get sick and have a fever. The doctors don't seem to be too worried about my temp being 1.5 degrees higher than average, even though that's actually closer to 3 degrees higher than I usually am. I'm the opposite. I run between 96 and 97. I've been in the 95 range on occasion. It's because I'm cold and dead inside. There's not a single thermometer for everyone in the world. It doesn't take a grand sensor suite. It just takes the normal accoutrements of a doctor's office to collect them, one at a time, over a long period of time. And I think you missed the point of what constitutes a fever. Unless you are doing manual labor in the blazing sun, your body temp should not be able to rise to the level of a fever reaction to an infection. This is why a traditional mercury thermometer needs to be placed under the tongue or rectally, to get at that core body temp, not just the surface skin temp. A fever gets markedly above anything that food or activity can induce. It's the body's temperature regulation getting out of hand, which for food and exercise, it does not do. I'm making a statement that nobody knows their own baseline body temp, and certainly shouldn't expect medical records to magically know it, unless they have their temperature taken multiple times a day for long enough to establish the baseline, and then again every so often, or after major health events. Normal accoutrements of a doctor's office equals being in a doctor's office to use them. If you want everyone to know their baseline body temperatures, then you need everyone to have the sensors to get it themselves, or you need them reporting to doctors' offices multiple times a day to get it. That's the only way to generate the medical record you want. Some people have extremely low metabolisms too. I have this in the opposite extreme. My normal temperature is about 94.6. I can be running a fever 5 degrees over my baseline and still not be detected. If people are looking for a fever of 100 degrees, by the time my temperature actually makes it over 100 degrees I'm hurting pretty bad, and it is very obvious that I'm ill. I had a popular disease recently, and my temperature never went above 99 degrees. I think all these temperature screenings people are doing are pretty useless. When I was in high school in the 80s, one of my more creative entrepreneurial schemes was selling get out of class pills. Niacin, B3, causes the skin to flush and feel warm, as though running a fever. I these pills for about 2 years before one idiot freaked out, thought he was dying, and spilled the beans. I didn't get in any trouble, but lost a really good revenue stream. This doesn't apply to the regular amount you get from food, only to the folks who don't, or are just starting to take higher doses in supplements. I think mine were 100 milligrams, which is probably about 10x from regular food. I kinda had the opposite problem. My temp runs a little low, and I generally don't run a fever, unless I'm really ill. When I was about 12 there was a nasty flu going around, but the school wouldn't send you home unless your fever was above 100. I knew I was sick, but they wouldn't send me home cause my temp was just under 100. I went back to class and the teacher for my next period said I should go to the nurse. Told her I did, and they won't send me home. They didn't make me do much for the rest of the day. I was out sick the rest of the week. Nicely done. I'd totally get sent home because of my wacky temperatures. Usually a 1°C difference between left and right, the right one always being the highest. I would literally be able to choose if they would get to read a normal temp or a high one. Imagine how easy skipping school could be.